Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Herdwatching. We're in traffic, so we're going to talk about politics for a little while. It's been a while since we've spoken together, but I feel now that we have enough, that I have enough to say that it's worth doing a quick video. I don't expect this to have any influence on the national conversation. There's, 20 some odd people that are going to watch this video. But even so, it's worth talking about, and it's always worth looking back later on the videos I make at the time and sort of seeing what was on my mind and checking that maybe against history later on. In any case, I want to tell you a story. And the story is about the plan to sort of own the American government for the foreseeable future. And in very broad strokes, here was the plan as sort of laid out back when Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama were butting heads for the presidential election that brought Barack Obama to power the first time. And somehow or another, everybody in the DNC sort of suddenly figured out how unlikable and miserable a human being Hillary Clinton was. But the Clintons sort of owned the party at that point. And then here came Barack Obama, sort of out of nowhere, popular, young, black guy. He checked all the boxes in the identity politics world. And what we now know was the even then sort of growing far left-wing sentiment sort of swept him to national prominence, and they realized that he was very, very electable. So it seems clear that some sort of a deal was struck where Hillary Clinton would kind of step aside and allow Barack Obama to move on to the presidency, kind of with her support, even though it was never really glowing. And in return, after 8 years, the DNC would never seriously consider another candidate, and she would be the presidential nominee. And in the intervening time, she was going to be free to sort of run the DNC apparatus and stack it with everyone she knew was loyal to her. And the Obama wing of the party sort of never got a chance, right? So to the extent that Barack Obama was maybe to be followed by the Bernie Sanders of the world or whoever, that was the deal Barack Obama made, was he basically handed the DNC back to the Clinton camp so that he could be president. And in addition to that, under his auspices, Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation were free to, skirt as many rules as they wanted to, deal with foreign powers, make as much money as they could. They were basically untouchable from a legal standpoint for all that time. And they took full advantage of it. When the opportunity came to give Hillary Clinton another big kind of boost in her reward structure, they gave her Secretary of State, which gave her even more power to make a bunch of money, build a bunch of relationships, and obviously start having meetings with foreign leaders and laying the groundwork for what would be the national policy for her presidency. All that while, she's legally untouchable, which is something that was pretty true for Hillary Clinton kind of all along. They've always managed to weasel their way out of legal trouble. Particularly, it seems to be fairly easy to do when everyone who has any real evidence that might put you away suddenly decides to, commit suicide in a bizarre way, shoot themselves in the back of the head, or get abducted by aliens, or, set themselves on fire in the middle of the ocean, whatever it is that happens to these people. But from Vince Foster on, it's pretty astonishing, right? So the Clintons sort of walk unscathed through this fire, protected by a pile of dead bodies on either side. And now with Barack Obama in office and her ascendancy essentially guaranteed, Hillary Clinton feels free to go ahead and sort of indulge herself at length. And she does. In the meantime, Obama himself is busily doing what, proto-Marxist, tyrannical, egotistical governors do governor in the sense of one who governs, not the title, which is he begins bending the government's power to his own ends, particularly to extending his power. And because Barack Obama fundamentally believes in sort of the Marxist, socialist, collectivist principle, not that everyone should be equal, I don't think he cares. But what he truly does believe is that it's up to people like him, the really smart people, to control all of our choices, and that we'll all be better off when the little people just do what they're told. It's one of the things that made him love the European Union so much. It's sort of the thing that really endeared him to the globalists quite so much. They're all of a piece, right? The elites should make all the choices, the little people should do all the work, and that we'll all be happier when we're not, burdened by the terrible choices that come with being a constitutional republic. And he sets about bringing this to fruition. And he does that by using the powers that have been sort of floating around in the government since 9/11 to bend the DOJ, the FBI, and the IRS specifically to his will. And it's at this point that we start seeing the IRS, for instance, become an overtly political tool, targeting Barack Obama's political enemies for special fines, investigation, shutting down businesses, interfering with licenses, shutting down charities, all that in the name of sort of weaponizing the tax code for political purposes to silence opposition. In the meantime, using the Department of Education, they launched that sort of a new wave of titles and regulations which make it very, very easy for college administrators to do the thing they've always wanted to do, which was to overtly become partisan and start shutting down ideas and thought on campuses that they don't like, thus sort of securing the next generation for the left even tighter. Barack Obama stops prosecuting border crossing issues so that they can have a much, much larger sort of support pool of illegal immigrants, which has always been very fertile ground for the left. And then the DOJ is doing double duty. One, it's protecting Hillary Clinton as fast as it can. And B, they are digging dirt up on everybody they can get their hands on who could conceivably be a threat. And during that time period, during Obama's presidency, we see a number of political threats being neutralized under DOJ threat. In the meantime, the DOJ is also, wielding its power against local police departments who aren't towing the political line about who's to blame, what's to blame, and why there is unrest, and so on and so on. So, more than any president in certainly living memory, but maybe in the history of the country, Barack Obama has turned the power of the U.S. government into a openly partisan political arm targeted to the destruction of the enemies of Barack Obama, also happens to be the enemies of the DNC. And then an amazing thing happens, right? Because here's sort of the way the DNC was looking at the future. Best case scenario, Hillary Clinton gets the presidency. Worst case, next scenario, Hillary Clinton has a heart attack or something and they have to give the presidency to another Democrat. The idea that a Republican could get in is ludicrous at this point because they have the DOJ. They've whipped up racial tensions exactly where they need to be. They can sort of manufacture police shootings on demand thanks to CNN and Comedy Central sort of holding the collective culture in their hand. And if by some amazing bad luck a Republican does manage to get in office, it's going to be the normal sort of Republican, your Mitt Romneys and whatever, who are basically just elitists in another name, but who are also so cowardly and so easily freaked out whenever they're accused of being racist that they can basically be controlled. So the worst case scenario is that the plan to sort of solidify power in the hands of the left has to take a hiatus for 4 years. And make no mistake, the ultimate goal of the left is the cessation of the democratic process, the republic in the United States. They want to see a permanent government in the hands of the left, and exactly the way the EU wants to see it. It's not hyperbolic to say that the DNC looks forward to the day when a voting republic is essentially a non-existent fact in American life. And then they can move forward with their openly socialist, Marxist, anti-capitalist, anti-democratic agenda. But in any case, no matter worst case scenario in their minds, for 4 years they have a Republican who's so scared of his shadow that he won't make waves. So even if, a Republican gets in office, the work they've done will be preserved, and then 4 years later, they'll simply use the FBI, they'll use the DOJ, crush this guy, get him out of power, and move on. And that's the plan. And if you can just hold on to the presidency for another 4 or 8 years with open border immigration, you throw an amnesty on top of that so that you manufacture a couple 100 million new voters who are all obviously going to vote Democratic, you can permanently swing the power needle to the left, and you can achieve sort of the 1,000-year Reich that you're dying to if you're a totalitarian lefty. But an amazing thing happens. And we will talk about that, the next step of this, sort of the rise of Trump and why the Mueller investigation was needed, in the next video. Part 2, probably coming essentially right away. I'm going to record it when I get out of the store, but I might as well leave these broken into 2 pieces, and we'll see if that does better on YouTube. Talk to you in a little bit, guys.